Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Salam Media. I'm your host, Takir Dawood, taking you through the next hour of the show, chatting all things sports. It's your favorite time of the week. It is a Friday evening, and we're chatting everything sports. This evening, we're going to be chatting a bit of cricket, and then we're going to be chatting a little bit of football, but we're going to be chatting on the other side of football, the dominance of Mamelodi Sundowns. But for the cricket segment this evening, tonight, for that matter, we pay tribute to a special legend who has recently retired from the game, one that's opened doors for many and set standards for many in the cricketing fraternity, in terms of lifestyle and on the pitch. Indeed, we're talking about none other than Hashim Amla, with 124 test matches under his belt, 181 ODIs, 44 T20s, and altogether 265 first class games. It's interesting. And who else to give us more insight on this than the one and the only Jack Manack, who's been in the cricketing fraternity for many, many years. Assalamu alaikum, Jack. Thanks for joining me on the show this evening.
Wa alaikum salam, brother. I'm so excited. Shukr for calling me. Shukr for allowing me to interact with your audience. Wallahi, I'm excited. So if you are listening out there, fasten your seatbelts. Let's bat and bowl.
Jack, Hashim Amla, what a guy. What a guy. For you, what are some of your most memorable moments of Hashim? Or let's start off with, how do you describe the type of guy that he is?
Now, let me go back to that question. What is my interaction with him? There was one day I was at the Wanderers cricket ground. He was commentating some time back. And while he was commentating, it rained. So, there was time for Salah. So I decided to walk around and then decided to get there was a Jamaat Khana at the Wanderers Cricket Stadium. I got down there, sat in, and as I walk in, there I saw Hashim reading the Quran. And I said, Salam, brother, I want to chat to you about something. I'm glad I saw you here in the Jamaat Khana. He said, you came here for Salah. First, read your Salah. That is the priority. After that, inshallah, we can talk. That alone describes the person on a whole, that it's not about him. It's about a bigger purpose. It's about others. And that was my interaction with him. And there's been quite a few, but that is one that stands out. If you say describe him, it just stands out by a mile.
No, definitely. What a guy. What a guy. Humble, down to earth, and always just focused on the greater goal, which is pleasing the Almighty. But for you, how would you describe Hashim Amla?
Sorry, I lost you there.
I said, for you,
how
would you describe the type of person that he was?
I don't think words can do justice. And I don't think I have the words. So I'm going to use his name to describe him. And his name, Hashim, is Hashim. So I'm going to talk about attributes, qualities that I feel are fitting. And I don't think this is even justice. So I'm going to start with H. And the word H that describes him, I think, best is humility. Life is a test. But the first test of a great man is humility. This week when Hashim basically called it today from One Day Internationals and all of that, Faf du Plessis on Twitter spoke about Hashim's humility. He said, you are the father figure of our team with so much wisdom, with so much humility, and always a smile on your face and a rock in our batting. And, and he says, I can go on and on remembering Hashim. To me, when you talk about humility, it is when you don't talk about someone and others talk about you, others talk about your mastery, others talk about your skill, others talk about your character, others talk about your performance. That to me is humility and a flag bearer and an ambassador. So when I start with H. Humility is firstly how I describe him.
Definitely humility. And if you have to move on to the A, what would the A
signify? I would say is adaptability. It is not the strongest and the most smartest who will survive, but those who best adapt to any format of cricket. Now, when you talk about adaptability, Hashim played from 2004 to, I think, 2019 in all formats of cricket. And in that format, how did he fare? How was it adaptability in all? So let's look at some of the stats. He recorded the fastest 2,000, 3,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 to 6,000 to 7,000 runs in ODI. Now that talks of ODI, but not enough was in ODI. In ODI, he was also the fastest to reach 10 ODI centuries. And also in ODI, his centuries were at all other countries, which was only the fourth person to do so. He was the fourth fastest person to do so. So in ODIs, he was really, really successful. Let's talk about tests. He played over 124 tests, over 9,000 runs, and an average of 46. But what makes him unique, again on adaptability, he holds the record for 311 as a top score for a South African at test level. His statistics on ODI is over 181 matches at an average of 49 with 2,700. So, and 3950. So when you talk about adaptability, if Wisdom can make him Cricketer of the Year in 2030, and that alone says what a type of adaptable cricketer he is. So I think definitely adaptability.
No, definitely adapting across all formats of the game, and just watching each one of those was just a sight. I mean, the way he could anchor innings, the way he could lead innings when he needed to lead, and it just shows that it was never about him. It was always about the game and what the game needed first before what he needed as a player. But if we move on, and I mean, you've touched on H, you've touched on A.
And let me talk on S. In S, I think many of us will agree, spirituality. Spirituality is about seeking a meaningful connection, like a connection with something bigger than yourself, which can result in a positive impact, create peace, contentment, gratitude, being present, being conscious, being mindful, and being connected to your Creator. Now, when you talk of being connected to your Creator, here's a person who lived with purpose, with a vision, with values. And whenever you met him, he was always, in the way he sat, the Prophet ﷺ always sat down and drank. You watch him on the field. So when it came to spirituality and connection to the Creator, he was some that showed us, how to do it. And he was an example of it. And the story I said earlier when I was in the small Jamaat Khana, reminding me that it's not about coming and talk to me, but connecting to your Creator. So he always put that first. And that is a lesson to all of us.
No, definitely. And I mean, you've played cricket at the highest level, and just how much spirituality is needed in order to get you through the ups and the downs, because many people don't touch so much about the ups. When things are going good in sport, how much do you rely on spirituality to keep you level headed?
That is critical. That links me to the next alphabet, H. How much spirituality is needed is how much hope you have. H is for hope. Once you choose hope, anything is possible. It is never to give up. It is looking, when you're down, when you're out, and you can't stand up anymore, it shows resistance. That shows persistence. That shows a never giving up attitude. Pursuing cricket, even though when cricketers called him different names and they said he hasn't got the right technique, he carried on. He persisted. He carried on with hope. So to me, and every day it's about waking up, dressing up in your white, showing up, stepping up, topping up, and never giving up. So when you say about never giving up, if you can, when you fall and you can look up, you can rise up. And that is what he was. He was an example to others on how he gave hope and never gave up.
True, never ever gave up. I mean, one could say that about so many innings of his, where he's rescued the day for South Africa. But moving on to the other letters of the alphabet.
I is for, he was an inspiration. He was an inspiration. Let's look at who he inspired. Let's look at target market. Let's look at people. He inspired his teammates, but not only his teammates, opponents. He inspired young and old. He inspired people locally, in his community, in his country, and also overseas, whether they were on radio, television, commentators. He was an inspiration to parents, to present cricketers, and to experienced cricketers. To me, he was an inspiration to everyone. And how was he an inspiration? He led by example. It was not by his words, it was by his actions.
Mm.
His actions was how he conducted himself as his character. And how he conducted himself wherever he went. He articulated himself with akhlaq, with character, and people were inspired by that. When you see someone, it's not the presence of how you are. It's what you make people feel like that they leave a lasting impact. Every time they saw him, he left a lasting impact, and people felt his presence. That feeling no one can explain, and I'm sure it touched many who are listening today. Everyone he met, he left a feeling by his actions, by his humility, by giving them hope, inspiration,
Mm.
and humility.
No, definitely, definitely. Leaves us with one more letter of his name. And what are you gonna pull out of a bag this time for him? I could think of so many words, but I'll leave this one to you.
And what would you think about?
Me to just be
What
Muslim.
stands out for you,
For me, it would be Muslim, because everything
being a
that
Muslim?
Islam speaks about and everything that Islam is,
Absolutely. And
you would
I'm going to
find
talk
with
about being a
Hashim.
Muslim, but I'm going to talk about a different word. I'm going to talk about
Hmm.
maturity. In 2008, why I share maturity, Dean Jones, one of the commentators called him an Amla, a Hashim, a terrorist. There was
Mm.
a big uproar about this.
Massive.
Dean Jones was sent home immediately with the next flight, and Hashim was about this incident. He recalled and he mentioned in an interview I saw, he says, yes, I did feel hurt. The day Dean Jones apologized to me and said, I'm sorry, at that moment off air, he says, you know what, I didn't mean it to come on air. You know, Hashim talked about the teachings of Islam, what he learned. If anyone tries to apologize, forgive them. Who is the judge but Almighty? That showed to me maturity. That shows to me Iman. That shows to me a Muslim who was an example of maturity, of how we should act. Maturity is walking away from people, situations that threaten the peace, your peace of mind, your self-respect, your values, your morals, your self-worth. And here it was clearly, if it happened to me or any of us, if we think about it, how would we react?
Mm.
Here it shows maturity. There's so much qualities. Every alphabet we can find a word. But he was an example, a role player, an ambassador, a flag bearer who walked the talk, who was in action person with his total actions. When someone does that, you're inspired. You want to be associated with him.
No, definitely, and many would for that matter, indeed. And I mean, now that he retires from the game, looking forward, which spaces would you like to see Hashim in? And do you see him going forward as a coach, which is already embarked on the journey, or do you see him going into a commentary role? Where would you like to see him share his knowledge, and which part of the game would you want to see him giving back to?
I think he's already giving back. From the day he started his journey, he always gave back. And
Mm.
it starts from him as a human being. It's what does he love doing? And I think when he speaks, people listen. It's not what you say, it's how he says things, in his tonality, in the way he attributes himself. So wherever he is, if you are fortunate to see him, engage with him, interact with him. And if I had to see him, I'd just be great to see him and have
Mm.
coffee with him, have it, the role I would love to see and be selfish in that way. But the way he should be is definitely to see him as a commentator, his views. I love that he's on a betting capacity, but more so, I think the type that I would see him is a space that I work on, is the mental side of the game. And I spoke to him on that and on focus, on how to handle pressure, on how to handle fear, on how to be calm, on how to be steadfast, on how to be in that space. Teaching people, players, the mindset of a champion. I think that
Mm.
is the way where I would love to see him because I know It is much needed in our cricket, much needed in our space. Mental health is something that we all are challenged by. And if he gets in that space, I think he will touch hearts as he already is, turning lives, impacting lives, making a difference, making an impact the way he already is.
No, definitely, definitely. Making an impact indeed. And I mean, the cricketing world is so small. We've now seen him actually coaching in the SA20 league, and you've been seen spotted at the tournament earlier this week. What do you make of it so far?
The SAT20, I'm just inspired by it. I think it is definitely caught our eye. It brought cricketers back to the ground. It's difficult for me to comment on who I'd like to see win, but my son playing at the Park Royals, just to being part of one of the teams, as a father, there's no greater joy. So yes, I am glad that he's part of it, part of the one of the teams. And it has definitely brought the crowds back, created the
Mm.
atmosphere, changed the mindset of people. So it has definitely, I'd love to see, definitely more players from all walks of life, no matter what color, creed, caste you are, also be part of it more in a capacity. Definitely, I think, and also in administrative roles in different capacities, because I think we also have the knowledge and the know-how of how to be part of inspiring, impacting, and playing a role. And I'd love to see more of that. So definitely, it is definitely created a buzz. So when the games are here in Joburg next week Friday, we are at the Wanderers, and the Paul Royals play the JSK. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, you're gonna have to choose a side there, and we hope it's one where you're loyal to your hometown.
Absolutely, but my heart will be with my son. They got Shamsi, they've got Fortune, they've got a great bowling attack, and he's just there in the wings. I just love to see him play. So hope cricket will be the winner on that day. That would be all that I can comment on. I'd rather reserve my right not to comment on that.
Well, definitely. Well, Jack, thank you so much for sharing your insight and giving us some insight into the type of person that Hashim was and the brilliant career that he's had over over the years. I mean, you've summed it up in about 20 minutes, and I'm sure this conversation could go on forever. But thanks so much for your time this evening. I look forward to chatting to you real soon. And let's hope that we could unpack the SA20 soon with you and your son.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, brother. To all out there, I leave you with a message: wake up, dress up, show up, never give up. And if you do that, there's examples out there from Nelson Mandela, Hashim Amla, and Prophet Muhammad. Keep going, keep shining, and keep being a light. Even at night, the moon shines, so keep shining and smiling.
That was Jack Manack giving us a bit of motivation there and some insight into Hashim Amla's stellar career that he recently capped off when he retired from all forms of cricket at the age of 39. What a career it's been, with a top score of 311 in a test match. I mean, damn it. What a career. That's all we can say. We look forward to seeing the next part of his career take off. And we've already seen him behind the mic in commentary. And also, we're looking forward to seeing him coaching and seeing what impact he can have on players around him. Well, we're going to take a quick ad break. When we do come back, we're going to be chatting all things of football. This time we're chatting about Mamelodi Sundowns and their take on the sporting fraternity and the industry.